I'm Anthony Nguyen. Join us as we change the narrative around aged care, one story at a time. Welcome back to the Pioneers in Aged Care podcast. The sponsor for this episode is Aurelia Legal, an immigration law firm focusing on the aged care sector, specializing in navigating 482 and 186 visa sponsorships. Here we have Marie Alford, the General Manager of Growth, Innovation, Advisory Care and Partnerships at HammondCare. Welcome, Marie.
Thanks for having me.
No worries at all, and thank you for flying all the way over to Perth. And for me specifically,
I want to say I'm here just for you.
No.
I want to say I'm here just for you, but there's a great dementia research forum happening. And I've also got a great team here in Perth that I'm spending some time with on Thursday. So I'm really excited to see that team.
The HammondCare, so the team's here visiting, or there's a team based here as well?
So one of our major government-funded programs, Dementia Support Australia, operates out of all states and territories in Australia. And so we've got a team here in Perth that go absolutely everywhere. So top of Perth or top of Western Australia, bottom of Western Australia, all around, distance doesn't stop them.
Oh, fantastic. Can you tell us a bit about HammondCare? We'll start broad and then we'll ask some questions to get into the details.
So HammondCare, my favourite question is talking about HammondCare. So built on the legacy of Reverend Bob Hammond over 90 years ago, he cashed in what was then equivalent to your superannuation to buy a block of land out in Western Sydney. It was a time of depression. So there were lots of families out of work, housing crisis that the government really hadn't lent into at that stage. He bought some land and said, if you're willing to work the land with me and with others, you can own your own home and live there with your family. And they built this community that grew up to be called Hammondville, and was a great start and a launching pad for HammondCare. And so once the 30s and 40s moved on and aged care became the next big thing, Bob Hammond and his merry men looked to what else they could do, and they moved into aged care. And so they built their first nursing home in the 50s, which is just being demolished as we speak in Hammondville. So the old Bond House nursing home is being demolished, ready for our brand new purpose-built community village that's going to change what I think is the face of aged care in Western Sydney.
Oh, that's exciting.
So we have aged care, home care. We have a couple of hospitals in New South Wales, a residential care that is in South Australia, Victoria, and New South Wales. But we also have services across Australia. So like Dementia Support Australia, which delivers Australian government-funded programs that support when behaviours impact the care of someone living with dementia. And we run commercial activities as well, design audits, design consultancy, and really just building sector capacity. And we've started to work with retirement living as well, because that's the next frontier for ageing.
So how many employees in HammondCare altogether?
Gosh, well, when I started in my portfolio, there was about 15, and there was probably a couple of thousand across HammondCare. In my department now, there's over 350 staff, and that's 12 years on. And there's over 5,000 staff in HammondCare nationally. Okay, so
tell me about your journey into Dementia Support Australia, or should I just refer to
just
HammondCare? Yeah.
So I was working in South Australia. I was working for what was then Alzheimer's Australia, South Australia, so now Dementia Australia, when I got a call from HammondCare asking if I was interested in working with them. Now, that call was one of those moments where you go, it's a bit like a fangirl moment. This is the organisation I've always wanted to work for, and they're calling me. Did I want to move to Sydney at that stage from South Australia? Probably not, but that's where the job was. So I moved over to Sydney, took a role leading up the operations for the Dementia Centre, which is a portfolio that sits within HammondCare, which really supports all of our activities relating to dementia, and have been working in that space for 12 years now within HammondCare, although I have moved back to South Australia this year, which I'm very happy.
Let's rewind then. I want to know how you positioned yourself to be sought out by companies such as HammondCare. Tell me about your journey into aged care.
Well, look, I think my journey, you get people who talk about growing up and having a passion for working in aged care or working with people with dementia. I have to be honest and say that wasn't my experience. I was at university, I was studying social work as a mature age student, and I wasn't interested in the aged care modules or learning. At that stage, I wanted to work in something I thought would be really interesting and sexy and exciting, and that wasn't aged care. I kind of fell into working in aged care after my parents died, and I went back to work for Alzheimer's Australia, South Australia, and really quickly fell in love with the opportunity to make a difference. Hearing the stories, walking alongside people living with dementia and their carers, influencing health professionals, really building and changing the culture of care. Well, it's kept me here for over 2 decades now. And I talk a lot to students about making better decisions than I did, because if you want an exciting career, aged care brings sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It is everything, but it's everything with a purpose.
Yes. I love that. So you mentioned when you first started, you didn't think aged care was sexy. So your view has changed since?
Absolutely. And, you know, it was the stories of people living with dementia. I think I probably had the same feeling about dementia that everybody else does when they first hear the words. You know, it's something that happens to older people. You know, they're unable to participate in their lives. Talk about being blown out of the water. The very first couple that I worked with over 23 years ago, was a couple, Ralph and Jenny. Ralph was diagnosed with younger onset dementia. Jenny, his beautiful wife and partner of over 30 years, they wanted to travel, and the airline wouldn't give them insurance to fly. And I remember saying to Jenny, of course they won't, Ralph has dementia. And she went, I'm not having that. And I thought, it's my job to actually advocate for you. This is a disease, a disability, like any other disease or disability. And Ralph should be able to live his life, travel and enjoy things that you and I do. And so we got that insurance so that they could fly to Africa, and Ralph took the most amazing photos of wildlife over there. That became a calendar that we sold. And I continue to have that passion to ensure that the voices of people living with dementia are heard first and foremost, and that we really honour their story and experience in everything we do.
How far are we away if we were to look at things on a scale of 1 to 10? How far are we away from having the public realize we need to advocate for people with dementia?
Look, I mean, it's certainly better than it was 20, 30 years ago. When I worked in an aged care home when I was 16, 17, it was definitely where people went as a rite of passage. You turned 75, 80, you went into a nursing home. It was very passive. The people that lived there were very grateful just to get whatever care they got. I think as society starts to think about aging and ageism differently, it's really challenging what we also think about dementia. So we know it's not a normal part of aging, doesn't just happen to older people, and it's not just about memory loss. So it's about so much more than that. I think we're starting to get more awareness, and it's really hard to find a single family that hasn't been impacted in some way by dementia. I know I get in an Uber and the Uber driver asks me what I do for a living, and I talk about it and they go, my father, my sister, my cousin. So everybody knows someone. What we need to do now is talk about it a lot more. Maybe like we talked about heart disease 20, 30 years ago with the great campaigns with Norm, who used to get off the couch and, you know, get more active. We need to talk about what we can do to look after our brains and look after our heart to give us a better chance at potentially delaying the onset of some forms of dementia.
Yeah. Tell me what you've learned. So which conference did you go to again today?
So I'm at the Australian Dementia Research Forum, which is part of the ADNET, so the dementia network that connects people to clinical trials and other things that are happening. So this morning we were talking about neuroprotective factors, a fantastic trial that's happening in New Zealand on mice. So it's got a long way to go, but is showing some real possibility of slowing down the progression and actually changing the trajectory of the disease. And there's lots of great clinical trials on the market now. They're usually for Alzheimer's disease, though. So we really want to have clinical trials invested in therapies that target frontotemporal dementia, dementia with Lewy bodies, and younger onset dementia as well, which, for people who are younger, the impacts are just as devastating as it is when you're older, but you've got a lot more factors involved.
I'm going to ask the stupidest question. What's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
Oh, the difference between Alzheimer's disease and dementia. This is the question I get asked the most.
Oh, thank God.
Usually by Uber drivers.
Okay.
So, and it is really confusing because we think about dementia as being about memory loss. So I like to think about dementia as cups of tea. So you can get a whole different range of teas. You can get black tea, you can get green tea, peppermint tea, chamomile tea, Earl Grey, English, there's so many different forms of tea, but they're all tea essentially. And so Alzheimer's disease is just one form of dementia. And there are over 80, 90, 100 different forms of dementia.
All right.
Some are very, very rare. And so the population for those people living with dementia of those types is very small. Your most common form is Alzheimer's disease, which is really presenting most in memory loss, but vascular dementia, which affects your heart. So people who have strokes or heart disease are more at risk of vascular dementia, which interrupts the blood flow to the brain. That occurs in a significant proportion of the population. And they might have a mixed dementia with Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia as well. And then dementias like Lewy body dementia will present much more with hallucinations and delusions rather than memory loss. And so they're harder to detect than Alzheimer's disease, which, we're so used to thinking about memory loss as the primary thing that happens with dementia, but it impacts all of our senses, from our taste, our touch, our auditory, our visual, our place and space in time, to how we interpret the world around us, how we interact socially. So it's quite complex, but they're all dementias. Alzheimer's disease is just one of them.
I just learned something new. Can you tell me what your role involves? So again, your role is General Manager of Growth, Innovation, Advisory, Care and Partnerships at HammondCare. What role did you have coming into HammondCare, and how did you add on so many different hats?
So before I joined HammondCare, I was a General Manager for Alzheimer's Australia, South Australia. So I had the great pleasure to run back then what was the Dementia Training Studies Centre. So it was the first run at the government funding training and education that was both tertiary but also for care workers working in aged care. So I took that knowledge as well as some counselling, leadership and experience in leading education programs in South Australia into HammondCare to run a range of their behaviour support programs. So hate the word behaviour support or behaviour management, I hate. Behaviour support is probably slightly better, but those programs are Australian government funded and they're free for anyone to access across Australia. And they're really built around reducing the risk to the person living with dementia and those around them. And so they really look at what are the modifiable factors that are happening. So we know that a lot of behaviours of people with dementia are related to pain, the environment, the approach of carers, all these things we can change, which changes the experience of someone living with dementia. So the last 10, 11 years, I've really run those programs, supported our teams across Australia as we've grown them. Got a relatively new role, and I always say I've got the best job in the organisation every time it changes, but this one's really much more engaged with growing our services and programs and looking to the future, what comes next. So that might be what comes next in the design of the built environment where we provide aged care, because we know that the small household model is optimal care for people living with dementia, but that's the current cohort. When I get into aged care or when you get into aged care one day, what are we going to want to live in? Do we want to live in a house with 8 to 15 other people? Probably not. We're probably going to want our own apartments and those sorts of things. So from an innovation perspective, how can we build environments and use technology to make good decisions to help people? and then grow our services. So what are the programs? Listening to people with dementia, what do they need? So we've recently started a program that supports carers of people living with frontotemporal dementia, because they get a bit overlooked when we talk about dementia. It is a very different experience to Alzheimer's disease. It presents much more with behavioural changes that people are unable to understand the intent or the consequence behind those behaviours. So we started a brand new program that supports those carers to proactively understand why those changes are happening. So I get a chance to talk to a lot of people, hear what their pain points are, and then go away and think about what are some solutions that we might apply. Then we try them. If they work, we get them out into the public, we share them as much as possible. And if they don't work, we learn, we pivot, and then we try again.
So you've had an amazing career at HammondCare. They seem to be really good at identifying talent. And they identified you, brought you in, grew your career into a lot of different areas. What are some other benefits of working for HammondCare?
Oh, look, I think HammondCare, they invest in their people. So it's an amazing opportunity to join an organisation that really seeks to develop individuals and takes their talents and uses them in a way that best supports the people that we serve. If I think about some of my colleagues over the years who've started as care workers in our aged care homes, who've then gone on to undertake registered nursing training, and some who are now leaders in our behaviour support programs as well. And so the ability to move through, being such a large organisation, you can move around and change areas as well. So you can try work in our home care space, in our aged care space, can really grow your skills and learn from some great leaders. So I've had some great leaders working in HammondCare as well. And there's a real culture of try something. So, we take a really nice approach to risk. So we like to go, well, is it causing harm to someone? No. Is it potentially going to increase their well-being? Yes. Let's try it and let's see what happens. And I think that's a really nice approach in an industry that is really heavily regulated. And sometimes the easiest answer is to say, no, we can't. But at HammondCare, we like to say we can.
So I've got a question from the sponsor here. The sponsor is Aurelia Legal, and they're an immigration law firm focusing on the aged care sector, specializing in navigating 482 and 186 visa sponsorships. So the question is from Nilesh Bansal, the principal and founder of Aurelia Legal. And his question is,
hello, my name is Nilesh Bansal, founder and principal of Aurelia Legal. We specialize in helping aged care providers plan workforce strategies and assist them with visa applications for their staff. My question is, looking ahead, what do you see are the biggest hurdles in maintaining adequate staffing levels? And are there any particular roles or skills that are proving especially difficult to fill in Australia? If so, how do you intend to address these challenges? Thank you.
It's such a great question. So we know that we're a couple of years past COVID, but we're still riding that post-COVID wave in terms of workforce. The Royal Commission, the unintended consequence of the Royal Commission meant a lot of people left aged care. People didn't want to see themselves on the front page of the paper or television. The bad news stories that were exposed really needed to be exposed, but there's so much good happening in aged care. So we need people to be engaged as aged care workers. Now, it's great over the last 12 months, we've seen some pay increases happen for that workforce. Still think we need to lift that a little bit more because it's an industry that we're working with people one-on-one. And we're really spending time with them and engaging with them. And so you want people there for the right reason.
yeah,
Now, that doesn't mean that it's not somewhere on their journey to doing or becoming something else. But while they're working with us, we want them to be passionate and engaged. So definitely need people who want to work on the floor of aged care. I think allied health is the other big area. Can't get enough allied health in aged care. And I know you and I were at a conference recently where it was all about allied health.
Yes.
Physios, OTs, social workers, really coming together in that holistic multidisciplinary framework to support older people and people living with dementia. And this storm is
This is
insane.
a bit of a storm. So
Did you see the lightning before?
yeah, I know. So if anyone sees some flashing, we don't have paparazzi taking pictures of Murray for being on the podcast. It's actually lightning.
A little bit of thunder.
A little bit of thunder.
I mean, I like to think I bring the storm, but this is a bit ridiculous.
And we were supposed to do this podcast at the Positive Aging Summit in Adelaide last week. I want to take this moment to say a huge shout out to Mark Ryu and the Australian Aging Agenda. Put on a fantastic conference. Really can't wait to go to the 2026 event.
It's great. It was so inspiring, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Do you know where it's going to be?
I'm hoping back in my hometown of Adelaide. Let's hope it's there.
I have the best time in Adelaide. Up until I think maybe about 8 months ago, I hadn't been to Adelaide before. Now I've been 3-4 times. Love it every time. So I'm more than happy for it to be in Adelaide.
We've got a great aged care home in Adelaide if anybody wants to come and work for HammondCare in Adelaide.
There you go. Okay, now I want to dig into yourself. Tell me about you, your personal story, what you do outside of aged care and your work.
Wow, all about me. It's my least favourite topic. No, it isn't. I love talking about myself. No. Look, as I said, I trained as a social worker because I wanted to make a difference to people. And I think, I got that trait from my family. So my mum was always on the parents and friends committees, and she was very supportive in our community. And my parents died when I was in my early 20s. That really impacted me.
Both parents?
Both parents. So my dad had been sick for a long time, and he was one of those old school people who kind of just decided, I think he'd had enough. He was tired, he'd been sick for a long time, and died very, very quickly before we could even implement palliative care. Unfortunately, my mum developed cancer about 9 months later, and then 9 months after that, she died as well. So that really shaped me, I think, as an individual. I took some time out then, and it was probably sort of my late 20s, early 30s to find myself before I entered the field of aged care and dementia. I have a beautiful family. I have a gorgeous son who's now 31 and a couple of great stepdaughters and some grandsons as well. So, it's family that keeps you together during difficult times. Probably the biggest thing that I've learned over time, though, is the importance of looking after myself. And so I remember for a long time, and I know that lots of people who listen to this, their ears will prick up, work long hours. Like, in aged care, sometimes we give a lot of ourselves, and that can take us down a rabbit hole where we just work and work and work until we burn out. And then we're no good to anybody else. And I think, it's taken me a long time, but over the last couple of years, I've really learnt to put myself first.
Put your own oxygen mask on?
Absolutely. It is about that compassion to self.
Yeah.
And knowing that makes me, I think, a better employee, a better leader, a better friend, a better mother, a better family member, and makes me healthy as well. So I want to live to a ripe old age. So my friend, Gwenda Darling, I don't know whether you know Gwenda Darling.
Yes,
Pink
I do.
hair.
Yes.
Most gorgeous person in the world.
Everyone knows Gwenda.
Yep, everyone knows Gwenda. I want to be like Gwenda. I want to age disgracefully. And to do that, I have to look after myself. And so now I've moved back to South Australia. I walk on the beach. I spend a lot of time just on my own.
I love that post you made where you got locked out of your new apartment.
I did.
And you thought, you know what? This is just going to be a day for me. I'm going to the beach.
Oh, you have that moment where you get so freaked out. It's like, I've got to get back inside. And then I thought, you know what? I've got my mobile phone. I've got my AirPods. Don't have my keys. I can go to the cafe, have a nice leisurely breakfast. And then I took a walk on the beach. And then the Moseley Beach Club was open, so I sat on one of their lounges, and it might have been 11:30, and I ordered myself a little mocktail, sat there, called some friends until my spare set of keys rocked up. So, look, you have to think about taking care of yourself, because it is so important, and we give so much of ourselves in the work that we do, but we are our own most precious resource.
What would you want to say to anyone who is on the cusp of considering a role in aged care? What message can you give them just to tip them over the edge?
Look, the opportunity to work and walk alongside people living with dementia and their families, it's life-changing. So the stories that you hear, the memories that people bring forward and share with you, the relationships that you get to form and get to be part of, it's an absolute privilege. The vulnerable part of our society that can sometimes be so overlooked. So as we get older, and the older I get, the more I'm aware of ageism, which is terrible. We should be aware of ageism a lot earlier. But I think, that ability to give voice to people, they don't lose purpose just because they're 80, 85 years old or they develop dementia. When we stop working, when we stop being contributors to the economic society that we live in, sometimes our value diminishes. Yet I see people in aged care, and I see people in home care situations whose value is translated in the stories that they share, in that generational history that they can hand down, in the memories and the impact that they make. I have to say, the workforce that I work with, I see them change lives, but I see their lives changed as well.
Yeah, I love that. Marie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really appreciate having you on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.